Welcome to A Woman's Brew, where women talk about beer. In today's episode, we find out what a monk in London gets up to when we speak to Swiss-based brewery Schwarz Monch. I'm Joanne, and this is Tori.
Hello.
And we're two beer-loving women on a mission to get more people drinking and talking about great beer. Come join us. Today we welcome David from Schwarz Monch. Am I saying that correctly? Please correct me if I'm not.
Well, I think that's right, and I'm sure the Germans would correct you a little bit. They always do.
But, yeah,
I think it's fine.
Could you tell us why are you here? Why have we brought you on onto our beer podcast? What is so interesting about your brewery?
Well, it's an interesting story altogether, and the reason I'm here really is because we're just launching in the UK for the first time, and we're brewing with a very nice craft brewery in Surrey that we met in rather strange circumstances, but it's a relationship that's developed into something very positive, and we're now brewing with them, bringing our beer all the way from Switzerland, halfway up a mountain in the Alps, and the story that goes with it is interesting, which is helping to introduce it to people, but also the style of the beer is interesting because it is what we call a Schwarzbier in Europe, and a Schwarzbier is something completely different. It's not a stout, as everybody would imagine it would be, being black, but it is halfway house really between a lager and an ale. And I'm sure I'm telling everybody who knows all this, but nonetheless, a lager is brewed with a bottom fermenting yeast at a much lower temperature, and an ale with a top fermenting yeast at a higher temperature. And the odd thing about a Schwarzbier is that is a top fermenter brewed at a lower temperature. So it really is a halfway house. But the characteristics of the beer are completely different to a stout. So you drink it chilled, about 5 centigrade. And it's got a sparkle like a lager. It's lighter bodied than a stout, and it's extremely refreshing. And so, unlike a Guinness, and I'm not knocking Guinness because I do occasionally drink it, but it's got a bit of a sort of pipe and slippers image because it's a room temperature beer. It's a heavy bodied beer, and it's not something you would normally drink as a thirst quencher. Somebody would undoubtedly.
Yeah, say, well, I do.
But I think I can generalize and say that most people don't drink Guinness as a thirst quencher. Whereas with ours, it definitely is a thirst quencher. And we have this beer garden at 4,500 feet up a mountain where people are coming in from skiing, from climbing, from mountain biking, and all sorts of other alpine pursuits. They've just done the Klettersteig and other things, and they're thirsty. They're really thirsty, and they've done their activity, their sort of adrenaline activity, and they drink 1.5 liter jugs of this stuff.
Amazing.
First quencher, yeah. So it's a completely different experience, and that's really why we brought it to the UK, because we felt that was a gap in the market. Nobody's really heard about a Schwarzbier. It's a completely different drink, but it is black, which makes it stand out immediately. And the reception we've got has been really good. And I've been reading the untapped reviews from the UK, from the places that now have it in the UK, and they've all been great, 4 stars. And so we're very happy about that. And now we just need to get the name out there. And of course, that's a part of what we're doing right now.
Yeah, amazing. So we've got it here. Should we crack this open now, as soon as we were talking about it? Let's do that. Yeah. You're quite right. You just don't see Schwarzbiers about, but when I see them, they're I love them because I'm a dark beer drinker, and it's just they are a refreshing beer, but you're still getting the notes of those lovely dark beers in them.
That's right. It's a distinctive taste usually. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm quite pleased.
Oh, it smells really nice as well. Like just genuinely, it smells really nice. I like Schwarzbiers. When I see them, I make all black beers really. When I see like black lager, like overall black lagers, stuff like that, I personally really enjoy those, so I go and buy them. And yeah, I'm I don't even think I'd have to do an activity to want to go and like down pints of them. Like I feel like I'd be very happy.
Normalcy in the UK, there's not many alpine activities going on.
No, but it would not take an alpine activity to get me excited. And like smelling this, I haven't even tasted it yet, and it smells beautiful.
It smells, it looks beautiful. It's got this lovely thick creamy head on the top there.
So in Switzerland, we use this slogan, tall, dark, and snow-capped, because it always has this big white head on it.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and it's come from a mountain, so tall, dark, and snow-capped was appropriate, really. Yeah.
Perfect. That's absolutely
perfect.
It is.
I just took it. It's really nice. Yeah.
Oh. Well, I can tell you honestly, and not just because of the nature of this podcast, but it's absolutely true that in our beer garden, where we get a lot of Americans actually for just a completely odd quirk of marketing, but we've been picked up by this travel writer and broadcaster in the States called Rick Steves, who's very famous out there. He's a bit like the Jeremy Clarkson of the States. He's a real personality, and we get people coming over whenever he's around. But he picked up on this, and so we get a fantastic number of Americans. About 85% of our client base in the summer is American, which is very unusual for even Switzerland. Yeah. But they love it, and the reason they love it is that the American brewing industry really came from Germany, on the East Coast, originally in New York. A lot of the original brewers, and also from Middle European countries like Czechoslovakia, Budweiser, etc. They all came from this German tradition of brewing. So they have always had lager. That's why you drink Budweiser lager, and all the rest of these things that come out of the States are usually lagers. So they're immediately more receptive to that, but also they love the traditional European brews. And so they've really taken to Schwarz Monch. And a lot of our good reviews came from them, which is why we shot to the top of the Untapped ratings and became the highest rated Schwarzbier in the world within a year of launching this thing, which was extraordinary. But I think very much due to the American market that we had. But the other really interesting thing, this is where your podcast may come in a bit, is that I can honestly say that it's been equally picked up by both men and women. Women really do like it because it has a sort of slightly smoother quality about it, has a nice taste. It's not overbearingly hopped, although it is quite strongly hopped. And so women really do like it. And that's fantastic because the biggest area of the market that's the expanding area of the market in the UK at the moment is the female market. Yeah. It went up an enormous amount last year. I was checking this. So that's encouraging again. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's because, so scientifically, women can taste more bitterness, which is why generally they don't like. I personally don't really like the really hoppy beers. I know Tori does. So we're quite a nice balance. But we both love a dark lager. And this is beautiful. It's got that. Yeah, it's really like the carbonation makes it really refreshing. Like it's just like.
It's very well balanced. I think it's very well balanced between like there's like a bitterness there, but it's not an overbearing bitterness. It's very balanced out with the roastiness, and I love that roastiness. And yeah, I think that the carbonation's there, but it's not so carbonated that you feel gassy and you almost feel like it's too much. But it's exactly as you said, kind of when you have a Guinness. I enjoy a Guinness. Especially if I go out, and depends on what's on the bar, usually I'll just gravitate towards the Guinness, but it is very filling and you can only have so many Guinness before you're like, oh, it's too much and I just feel full. Whereas there's a lightness to it, but it's not watery. It's not too thin. It's that lovely body on it is enough that it's substantial. Yeah, it's
full body. It's slightly creamy. There's a bit of a creaminess on the end, and it's just like coffee and chocolate. It's beautiful.
But I can understand how you'd be out all day. I can see how, as a person that used to go snowboarding before I moved to the UK, and it became infinitely more difficult to snowboard in the UK. But I can see how you'd have a day on the slopes, and then you'd be like, lunchtime, what do I want for a lunchtime beer? And that is genuinely like, it really is nice. And I'm not just saying it because I'm talking to you. Like it is really nice.
It's really lovely. And that's the first time we've tried it as well. We both just cracked it open for the first
yeah,
time.
Joe, I've got to say, Joe was incredibly generous because she had 2 bottles and she's just like, I only have 2 and I'll give you one of my 2.
That's how much.
And
how
I was
nice
like,
a friend I am.
Okay, well, that's great. Nice job to have, actually.
Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit more about the brewery and the hotel, because it sounds absolutely stunning?
I looked at, I saw on your website, there was like a link to a YouTube video, and it was the view was absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, I definitely want to hear more about it because I saw that and I was like, oh my god, that's stunning.
Well, that's probably why I ended up there, because I was hiking through years ago, and it is a stunning location, and of course that's exactly why it's promoted by this travel writer Rick Steves. It's an exceptional location, and this rundown old hotel needed reinvigorating, so that's what I did. And then the beer came along. We started brewing in the cellars. We've got quite big cellars down the bottom, and we started brewing down there and experimenting. And we started in 2014. By 2017, we hit on this recipe and the secret ingredient, which I honestly believe makes all the difference to it. And so then in 2017, we started brewing and producing this for the beer garden. It went so well, we had to look at expanding the production, and we couldn't do it in the cellars, and we weren't allowed to do it. There was a rule in Switzerland that you can't brew more than 50 litres or something if you're in a residential building. So we then went to a local brewery, and we said, look, we want to brew this with you. And we set up a sort of it's not exactly a partnership, but it's a relationship that goes way beyond contract brewing.
Okay.
And they do our distribution. They sell it as their dark beer because they didn't have a dark beer. And so with Jungfrau, we started to brew in much bigger quantities, and then we started to sell to other people, other hotels and bars, and it just took off from there. But the thing about the hotel was that because we named it after the mountain right opposite us, and it was part of our view, it was very much an extension of what we were doing with the hotel. It really gave life to our beer garden. And so that we now get sort of people coming to the beer garden specifically for the beer. I mean, which is ironic because it's the view that started it all.
That's really funny.
And then they get there and they try the beer. The beer's fantastic. Wow, what a view! You know, it's a view. So it's quite flattering, really, that we're actually getting people 4,500 feet up a mountain you can only get up by cable car to come for the beer. And the view has almost dropped to second, which it shouldn't have.
Wow.
I mean, literally the first thing. So when I saw that YouTube clip, I was like, that is obviously I found it because of the beer. And I was like, oh, I wonder where, what's the origin story here? And I was looking through and I saw the hotel and I was like, I wonder if you can stay at the hotel. Let me just kind of click around. And then I saw that YouTube video of the view and I was like, that is gorgeous. So I would be one of those people that were like, yeah, you stay at a place with the beer and oh, this view is amazing. Can people like, if somebody wanted to just book in, could somebody just book in easily enough to the hotel just out of sheer curiosity? Because I'm going to go now.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously at the moment we've had a very quiet time. The whole hospitality industry in Switzerland's been very, very tough for us last 18 months. And normally we're much busier than we are, but yes, absolutely. You just go onto our website and you can select a room. We've got 12 rooms, or we've got an apartment, and we take people from everywhere. And it's very much a relaxed style hotel, family style hotel. We have children ourselves there, and it's not a place really where you go for anything like après ski. It's not a sort of clubbing place at all. Ours is a tiny little agricultural village. But we are linked to a very famous ski resort, which is 5 minutes above us by cable car. So you're on the slopes in 6 minutes, and you can ski to our hotel, you can ski to the door of the hotel. But we're not in the main part of the resort. We're in a little agricultural village, a little bit further down the mountain from the main resort. But it's for us, it's perfect because we've always wanted to concentrate on having a hotel in the summer that can provide a relaxing environment that's in a traditional village, as a complete contrast to a more frontline resort, which other resorts around us are. But at the same time, you've got all the activities there: paragliding, skiing, climbing, mountain biking, all of it. But it tends to be more family based. We get a lot of families and people who come to take time out from a busy life, so a real break. and they can relax with the beer too. So it sort of works, really. Yeah.
Sounds like heaven. Do you still brew there as well as in the UK, or so it's has it all gone?
No, sorry, yes, we're not in the hotel. We don't brew in the hotel, but we do brew at the local brewery, Jungfrau. So we're brewing in Switzerland and in the UK now.
Okay.
Yeah. And obviously that has been something of a challenge. I mean, it was a long while before I could find the right person to brew with in the UK. We got quite a long way with several breweries that were interested, and then either they dropped out or we dropped out. And then COVID came along, which really mucked us up completely, because we just won in 2019. We got silver at the London Beer Competition, which is specifically to identify beer for the British market. So it was the perfect time to launch in the UK for 2020, and we had to that was scuppered by COVID. So we were sort of a year or 18 months behind schedule, if you like. But the good thing was perhaps waiting for this brewery we've got now is a good thing, because we think we got a better deal. We've got a very nice company to work with. We get on very well with the guy who owns the brewery. And they had the patience. And I think the other thing, the ironic thing, was that COVID provided us with more time to get it right, because this was the third brew before we got it right. And I think that the brewery might have not had the patience for that had they been flat out, as they normally are. But this COVID break gave them a lot of time to get our brew right. So that at least did work for us. It's a very difficult environment at the moment, as you can imagine, trying to persuade people to try something new in their bar or pub when they're saying, "Oh, sales are down, we've got to really economize, blah, blah, blah." So at the moment, we're going around preaching about Schwarz Monch, and we're getting very favorable reactions, and it's a challenge to get into new places all the time. But I think it'll get there. But certainly at the moment, we're brewing in both the UK and Switzerland, and we hope to expand quite quickly into the UK.
What was your criteria for what you were looking for from the brewery that you wanted to partner with?
Yeah, that's a good question, because as you can imagine, as a small brewery coming from abroad, you need to be very cautious anyway, about who you involve yourself with, for two reasons. One is you don't want your success to be stolen. That's a fairly obvious one. The other thing is that, it's very easy to get shelved and given sort of second-class treatment. We didn't want to be the sort of second driver in a Formula One team. We wanted to be, the first. And so we were actually, I think we're very lucky. It was sort of serendipity really that gave us this brewery, because what happened was we got into Lidl in Switzerland last summer. For the first time, and that was quite a big deal for us, really. And we appeared in 126 outlets in Switzerland. Wow. And I went along there, and I took a photograph for Facebook, as you would.
Yep.
Do my social media.
Definitely.
And I stuck it up on Facebook, and then we got various nice comments from people. One of which said, "Love your beer. That's fantastic. You got into Lidl. But did you notice the beer alongside you in the shelf photograph you took? Because that's us." And I'm one of the brewers. And so I went and looked at it, and there was this company called the Crafty Brewing Company with their beer there. And so I looked up on Google where they were, and it said in Surrey. And I sent an email back to him, not an email, I responded to his Facebook comment. And I said, "Thank you very much for your comments. That's great to hear from you, and I see you're in Surrey. We're very keen to start in the UK. Would it be worth having a chat? And could we come down to the brewery?" And he wrote back and he said, "Be great if you could come and see us, but we're not in Surrey, we're in Ireland, Southern Ireland." So I thought, well, that's me. What's going on?
Yeah.
So I then did another Google search, and I discovered a little bit further down the page, there were two crafty brewing companies, and a couple of short. Lidl were actually being less than honest, because this shelf that they were creating for craft beers, they had actually gone and produced their own beer in a brewery in Southern Ireland, so that it was in Europe, not in UK. because they were using the name of a UK registered company, but they could get away with it in Europe because it wasn't registered in Europe. So they pinched the name and they stuck it up there as if it was a craft beer. It was actually Lidl. And anyway, which is pretty deceptive to say the least.
Yeah.
But the good thing was, I then contacted the other crafty brewing company in Surrey and said, look, just by chance, I found out about you, but I've just read up about you and you sound really interesting. And that's how it all started. So it was completely by accident. Yeah, it was.
That is incredible. I am, there's many things that I don't believe, but one thing that I do believe is I am that person that believes that at least most things, if not everything, happens for a reason. Because I've always found I've had those similar type of weird coincidental situations that have sort of set the people down paths. Like I've come to that so many times in life that it's hard to not believe that. And that is one of those scenarios where it just convinces me even more that things happen for a reason. Because how else would you have found out about this perfect opportunity? That is crazy. That is amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's really funny. And if we are very successful, which I hope we are, then that story needs to be repeated, because it just shows you, as you say, things can happen for a reason sometimes, and it's refreshing to see that.
It's sometimes it's if other deals fell through, you could choose to look at it as, oh no, like another negative things happen, another bad things happen, but seeing this happen, it's kind of like, okay, other things might have fallen through, but ultimately, if you had partnered with somebody else, would you have been as satisfied as you are with this company who you found by sheer coincidence, chance? That is crazy. That's such an interesting story, and that's definitely something that I think needs to be put out there. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a good story. That guy's really, you've got the really lovely story about the monk in the mountains, and then you've got this fortuitous meeting of breweries. You've just got such good stories. It's great.
No, it is, and I think the monk has become, quite an iconic figure in Switzerland, and actually, it was something that obviously, with the name of the mountain being the Black Monk, we immediately thought, well, because there's this long tradition of monks and brewing. It was a very good name for a dark beer. And then I also looked at Sandeman's, the Don. I don't know if you recall the Don, but he is the most iconic branding. Goes right back to 1936. And they created this cloaked figure with the artist's hat holding a glass of port. Oh. And you see that all over southern Spain and Portugal, where it is, great big billboards on the mountains, on the hillside. And it's such an iconic image. I always thought, well, actually, the Schwarz Monch could become the Don of a dark beer, So it's given us a great opportunity, and we use him a lot in our advertising and marketing. And he does all sorts of different pursuits. So we do photographs of him doing different things, and we've introduced him as the Schwarz Monch in London, and
I've got, actually, for those that are watching the video, I've got the little postcard here. I love this one where he's in London, and it's I'm assuming this is based on a werewolf in London.
That's actually that's
great.
That's brilliant.
It's really good, and I like the one being from down this way. I love. He's looking at the white cliffs there. There he is in Dover, just down the road from me.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. No, well, this whole idea really was because the truth is that this is something we created, in 2000. Well, the final recipe in 2017. But having said that, it was inspired by what the monks in our monastery near us, which used to own the area where the village we're in, they would have been brewing beer, 500, years ago or more. And they would almost certainly have been brewing Schwarzbier, because that was the traditional beer. That was the only beer at that time, really. So we thought, well, we'd take that as our guide. We'll try to recreate a Schwarzbier, which we did. And then we put our own twists on it by putting in a secret ingredient, getting a special taste. But essentially, we wanted to create this monastic brew of the type that would have been brewed locally. So we've kept that tradition going. And we're now exporting it. So the whole idea was that the monk is bringing it to the UK, this special beer. And that story has always worked really well for us. And he's a fun figure. He's always faceless. You can never see his face.
Yeah.
But he's a fun figure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I quite like that. And I was going to say, I really like the design. If anybody's looking at the video, and you can probably see that. I mean, that's the label on it. And I really like that design because I love that, it's like a darker background of the mountains and the full moon. And then the monk is in gold. And he does have this almost air of more like mystery to him than maybe it seems more like a modern yet more mysterious, but still true to a monk. And I feel like a lot of other styles, when they put a monk on something, it doesn't look as mysterious or as, I don't know, this has like the gold maybe gives it a bit more like luxury to it as well. It's a bit more like sleek modern take on it, and it's like a bit of a cheeky mysterious monk, and I quite like that. But I think the label is genuinely gorgeous, and I love that idea of like, the monk is bringing it now to London. It's the monk in London. Like, that's such a good idea.
Yeah, no, and I think people really respond to that, and it is, it's obviously it's tongue in cheek. He is a bit sinister in a way to look at, but actually, he's basically a monk enjoying his beer, and that's and wanting others to share it, and that's how we focus on it, and we will use him, in our marketing in the UK. He will appear at different places. We're gradually going to work our way around the country.
I was going to say, so you said you've sort of using it in the branding of export into the UK. Do you export it anywhere else at the moment? Could people outside of the UK and Switzerland get their hands on it, or is it kind of you have to be in one place or the other in order to have it?
At the moment, yes, but we have actually exported briefly to the United States because there was so much demand. But it was just, we had all sorts of problems with that. One is obviously cost. It was extremely expensive, so people really had to want it. And the other problem was that the postal system, which we had to use for the final delivery, once it had been shipped over the Atlantic, it had to go through the postal system. The way we were doing it anyway, it is strictly speaking illegal to transport alcohol in the postal system in the States. So we decided to knock that on the head, really, for the minute, although we're constantly getting emails from the States saying, when's it going to be available there? And I think at some point we will seek some kind of partnership to do what we've done in the UK with a good quality, relatively small craft brewery in the States to get it out there and use them as a sort of pilot brewery to try and get it into the States. And that's really our approach. It's very much a low-cost way of trying to broaden our export of the beer. We can't export from Switzerland really because the cost of production in Switzerland is so high, it's the highest in Europe, that by the time you've exported and paid any kind of duty, because it's not in the EU, we cannot really be, you can't really sell it because it's just too expensive. It's getting like an expensive wine. So it has to really be manufactured in the country that, and also, of course, ecologically, that's not such a bad thing because otherwise you're exporting, vast quantities of water when you could be brewing it more locally and not using so much carbon or acid. So I think that's probably the future of most brewing, that you make sure that the quality of the brewery that you pick is good enough to represent the beer you have, and then you go forward from there. And so if we get it to the States, which we're fully intent on doing, it will be through the same idea that we pick a smallish brewery with a quality image and push it from there. So it's quite a slow growth strategy. We don't have huge capital resources ourselves, but we feel that you can grow organically if you start off from the right sort of seed, if you like. If you plant it as a seed in a country with a quality brewery and then build like that. And if you've got patience on your side as well, you have to have patience.
Yes.
And you don't get rich overnight, that's for sure.
No, that is true. And I know, talking about sending it to the US being difficult, I know just sending it within the US from state to state is incredibly difficult. So the idea of even trying to send it, I mean, my sister in the US, she tried to send me beers. I was supposed to go back last Christmas. That didn't happen. So I'm going back this year. But my sister kept collecting these beers that were being released so that when I came home last Christmas, we could drink them together. Thankfully, they're stouts, so they'll keep another year, which is fine. But she was like, can I send them to you? And I was like, absolutely, please do not, because I said, you try to send that across and you're technically, as you said, it's illegal to do that. Yeah. I was like, it's going to go missing and somebody's going to end up with a lot of money's worth of beer and I'm going to get none of that. And I was like, so please don't do that. So I don't blame you for saying it's just too difficult to do it that way anyway.
Yeah. So I think that's the only route really for us in the future. Take the same approach in the States. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. So when you were perfecting these recipes with the different people, with the company in the UK, did you go and meet up with them? Was it done virtually? If you were to do something in the US like that, would that be something you could do virtually, or would it be something you'd have to go there and really work and develop with them? How does that work? Quite interesting.
I think you've definitely got to go there and develop it with them. Joel was based in the UK and he'd been out with us in Switzerland for some months and developed a working knowledge and everything of the way we produce it. And then I came over as much as I could. COVID made it more difficult, but I did. And as I said, we rejected the first 2 brews. We did 2 pilot brews and they just weren't quite there. I mean, they were good beer, nothing wrong with the beer, but it wasn't the right beer. And so you do have to do that. And I think the processes are different anyway, because the techniques for producing beer over in Switzerland rather, are different equipment. And then the British breweries have to get used to the idea of brewing at a lower temperature and to some extent to balance the water. There are a number of different things to consider. Altitude in our case, funnily enough, because we're brewing at a lower altitude in the UK by some distance, we had to quantify that and allow for that in the brewing process. It is quite tricky to get it right, but I think we have, and it's definitely worth it when you do get it right. Yeah. But you do need patience to get it right. It's not something you can just sort of send as a recipe across the Atlantic and say, right, we'll get on with it.
Right, yeah.
And expect them to get it right, because it's it's like, well, I'm sure chefs would say the same thing. You've probably got to be there to show somebody how actually you produce something that's really good. You can't just write it all down. It's not that simple.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would have thought about, I was going to say, I'm sure it's probably the water difference as well, probably makes a difference. I would have never thought about the altitude.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask about that.
So would have never popped into my mind, would be, altitude would make the difference. That is insane.
Yeah, no, it is. It's interesting. And I only learned these things, as I went along. It's not like I came to it with a fantastic knowledge of brewing. I didn't, and I had to learn as I went, and I knew nothing about the effects of altitude or anything like that, and I just picked this up from the people we brew with, really. So but it's been very interesting, and it's added to the story too. Yeah.
What made you choose the UK as the next place to send the beer?
Well, I think probably number one is it's easier for me because I am British. I have a small business in London as well, and so we immediately had an office in London. I did have a venue in London until about 10 years ago, and we're now selling in that venue, which helped, which we needed to have. I think one of the big successes of Schwarz Monch definitely is due to the fact that we had our own beer garden. So we could use that to get feedback immediately. And also we were able to promote it because it was our own beer garden. And that helped in the initial stages with Schwarz Monch in Switzerland. And it will definitely help that we now have this, it's on a boat actually, it's a venue on a boat, and it's right next to where our office is, which is also on a houseboat. Wow. In London. And so we've got our own place to actually promote it there. The monks already appeared on the boat, and I think that's really crucial. And I think most good craft breweries have their own tap room in which they can, generate enthusiasm for their brews and explanations for their brews, because if you just get a good beer, stick it on a shelf somewhere, A, why would anybody pick it up particularly? And B, if they don't know anything about it, they may not actually think about it when they're drinking it. And you really, especially with Schwarzbier being a different beer, you need people to think about it and say, oh yeah, this is different. I get this. So explanation, I think, is really important. And for the UK, it was a logical move, really. We had a number of advantages over anywhere else. And so we also had some following in the UK too, because we do get some British visitors.
Okay.
So that was why, really. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. And it makes sense why you've already explained sort of how you got to the idea of going with the dark beer. Would you guys ever consider brewing any other types of beer, or are you just kind of, for the time being, is the plans completely just to stick with a Schwarzbier while you roll it out across different countries, or is there any expansion plans in the future?
Well, the business plan's always been to stick with one beer. It's a one beer brewery, really. I mean, obviously that's what Guinness did very, very successfully. I like the idea of focusing just on the one beer. You know, we've got the Monk. Whether the Monk could be diluted into something else, I'm not sure. I don't think we have any plans to do anything other than Schwarz Monch. I suppose at some point we might, because there is an expanding market for it, do a non-alcohol.
Yes.
Because I think we could retain the taste and lose the alcohol if we had to. So that's the one possibility. But I think for the minute, no. And certainly as far as broadening into other brews, no, not really. I think we just stick purely with that. It makes our marketing easier in a way, just having the one brand, the one brew.
No, definitely makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I've not been to Switzerland. It's definitely on the list now. Is the drinking culture different in Switzerland to the UK, do you think? Is that an influence on the beer?
I think, yes, I think the drinking culture is different, definitely. You don't get the sort of Friday night, that you get in England at the end of the working week and all the rest. So you don't really get that in Switzerland. They don't drink like that. They are probably more moderate in their drinking. In terms of their collective drinking. I mean, when they get home, I don't know what they do, but certainly it's more moderate, and it's more based, in our case, around activity and then quenching thirst. And it's also very much a broadly based cultural event. It's not cliquey, I don't think. I think in England it can be a bit cliquey sometimes. Certainly used to be more male oriented than it is. It's certainly moving now in a much more equal way, which I'm extremely pleased about. And I would say that if anything, probably in Switzerland, where we are, it's a very broadly based drinking event. People come in, male and female, and drink in the bar. But it is different, definitely. I think there's no binge drinking, I don't think. That's not something that you really see in Switzerland. Certainly not amongst the Swiss, anyway. You probably would, if you go to some après-ski places, yes, undoubtedly. But if you're talking about the European drinking as a culture, I'd say there's no binge drinking, really. Otherwise, I mean, there's a good choice of beers now in Switzerland, although they were quite late to pick up on the craft brew broadening of beer choice, which I think the UK to some extent led, certainly the States too. So I think we're catching up with that. There are more beers available than there were. But yeah, there are differences, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. I can't think of anything else, because that was the question I was going to ask. Is there anything else that you've got, Jo?
No, I think that's it. If people want to buy this beer, and they should because it is delicious, where can they get it? So we are, first of all, if you go on our website, we now have a grid map to say where it's available. Amazing. We'll put that in the show notes. Yeah. So you just go on to schwarzmonch.com, and Schwarz Monch is not spelt the way you might think. It's SCHWARZMONCH. So we stuck with the European monk rather than the British one. Yeah. But if you go on to schwarzmonch.com, you can see a grid map of where it's available, both in Switzerland and in the UK. And so it's available in pubs, rather sort of spread out. There's one or two in Gosport. There's one or two in Surrey, there's some in Buckinghamshire, and progressively, and then there's a couple in London. So you can get draft Schwarz Monch in those locations. Okay. And there are various number of places also that are selling bottles as well, including the Wine Rack and various others.
And of course, you can buy it online. And probably the easiest way at the moment to guarantee getting it is to buy it online on our website.
Amazing. Can we get the glassware?
And
I was going to ask that. That was actually my last question. Is can you get the
Can we
merch?
get a
I want
glass?
that glass.
Where do we buy the glasses?
The conversation I had with Joel before coming on with you was about ordering the glassware.
Yeah.
Because we only have a very limited amount of it at the moment, but we could probably send you a glass actually. But we've got just a very small quantity in London, and we're just about to reorder because the glasses are actually coming from Germany.
Okay.
But as with everything, not just fuel, there's a massive delay on delivery.
Yeah.
And we're discussing that, but we have ordered. Yeah.
Amazing.
Because that's what I was like. I want to buy.
Yeah, we want to invest in a glass. We like a bit of glassware, so we will be investing in a glass. Yeah,
exactly. Well, we'll have to get you one. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you.
Anything else you want to plug before we say goodbye?
No, I think if you do like the sound of Schwarz Monch, do go onto our website, see where you can get it in the UK. It will expand. There will be more, and as we get into new places, it'll be on our grid map. It's great to have it draft. The bottles are good too. So you can always get it online if you're frustrated and not being able to get it. We will continue to expand and bring it to people all over the country, hopefully, and certainly to Kent.
Amazing. Yay! I'll have it down again. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Your beer is delicious and your story is amazing. So we're really happy that you came on.
Now going to look into going to Switzerland. So
now we're going to look into going to Switzerland.
Thanks very much. And look forward to seeing the podcast too. Yeah,
yes. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Right, that was a really really interesting interview. I feel like people that don't like to hear us have proper banter probably enjoyed that, because we didn't really deviate or anything.
We were professional.
It was good
to the point.
But I feel like I really learned quite a lot out of that as well. Like the whole altitude impact. I bet that's stuff that people that are super experts at beer are like, obviously altitude impacts.
I feel like there are some American breweries that have to deal with that because they're on the higher altitude areas.
It's just
I'm sure
I'd never think of. Like I'd think of the difference in hard water versus soft water, mainly because I moved from a country or an area of a country that had one type of water to an area of another country that had different. So I recognize that when it comes to altitudes, I think it's similar altitudes from where I moved to where I live now. So I just don't even think about what kind of differences that creates. And I thought that was really, really interesting. And for anyone that hasn't heard of them before, definitely go on their website, definitely look at it. The YouTube video that I mentioned when we interviewed, it is just, the view is just stunning from that video, and I saw it and I instantly was like, I want to book at this hotel. It was just, I was like, beer, a really good kind of beer, and this amazing view. I was like, I am in. So I'm probably gonna like look up now if I can stay there.
To Switzerland.
It went gorgeous view, and then look at the merch. Oh my god, that glassware is amazing. So that was kind of the order that it went for me. And then the beer, actually, it's amazing. It's really nice, and really I'm very appreciative that you shared one of your bottles. I really appreciate that.
I was very sad that I had to give that away. I'm glad I was just like, oh, it's Tori, I can give her this beer, it's okay.
Thank you. Yeah, it was lovely, and I'm glad that we got to see it, and I'm glad we got to talk to them, because I think that is it's a really interesting story from start to finish, really, and the beer is really interesting, really delicious, and there's not really much else to say other than I do want to go and I want to seek it out on tap, because I think it will be
I want to try on draft. I think it is going to be absolutely beautiful. It's got this really so the carbonation is there to clean your palate, but it's got a real creaminess to it, and I think on draft that would just be even more amazing. It's exciting. I want to know what the secret ingredient is. You kept teasing us with the secret ingredient.
I know. I wasn't going to ask.
You can't ask. You can't ask what the secret ingredient is, because it's secret.
You cannot ask, or else he wouldn't say it's a secret ingredient.
Right, exactly.
Like, I don't go like, Joe, I've got a secret, I can't tell you.
Right,
like,
what's your secret?
And I'm like,
secret?
all right, I'll tell you. That's
right.
Don't do that. But
we're not 12.
Or are we? Sometimes maybe we are. I mean,
sometimes maybe.
But yeah, absolutely beautiful. Cannot wait to go seek it out on draft and see what it's like. But for anyone that's not tried it, if you like a dark beer, or you want something that's refreshing, you like a bit of lager, you like a bit of dark beer, you like all that, go and try it. You're not going to regret it. It's really, really nice.
Beautiful.
Or if you check the locations they're pouring at, go and try it and let us know if it tastes nice on drafts that we seek it out.
We'll we can be jealous.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you again for joining us. It's absolutely brilliant. So excited. Joe, if people want to talk to you about Schwarzbier, where can they find you?
Oh, come and talk to me about Schwarzbier because I love a Schwarzbier. You can find me. I am a women's brew on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Getting into the Twitter a little bit more. I know it's hard, but I'm getting there.
That's a pool I will not tread in.
If you want to send me your tips about using Twitter, a woman's brew, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you would like to come and learn about beer with me, and we can talk Schwarzbiers, the best place for that is my beer school, Love Beer Learning. We are on a Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Pinterest, and we also have a website which is lovebeerlearning.co.uk. Or you can email me, which is lovebeerlearning@gmail.com, and we will pick up emails for the podcast there. Tell us if you want us to do an episode on Schwarzbier.
So I'd like to do an episode on Schwarzbier.
Put it in an email, Tori, and send it to lovebeerlearning@gmail.com.
I might do that now. Joke's on you.
I'm going to get an email in about 5 minutes from Tori now. Tori, if people want to give you tips on Swiss tourism, where can they get hold of you?
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm interested now. I am down. I'm interested. You can find me on One Place and One Place Only. I mean, there's the blog, but that's linked through the One Place and the One Place Only. And that is on Instagram at adventures_in_optimism. Unfortunately, if the world ends like it did last night for social media and you can't get me on Instagram, that's on you. That's not on me.
Join my
Joe
email
will be
list.
fine because Joe will be on Twitter. So
join my email list. Join my email list. Link in bio. Join my email list, and then I will be able to contact you, even if social media ends. Boom.
That's the real reason she's super into Twitter now.
Yeah, because everything else was dead.
Well, that has been. I think one of my favorite parts about this podcast is tasting new breweries, finding out about breweries that I haven't heard about before, or finding more about breweries that I didn't know about other than their beer. And this one was particularly interesting. So yeah. With that, go enjoy your night. I'm going to go drink the rest of my beer.
Cheers.